recording on Zoom and the audio, and we can put them together in the end if we need to. Um, how can I be of assistance this
So,
holiday season?
with the holiday season um, around the corner, there's often a lot of stress and anxiety generally with holidays and families and individuals. And I suspect that it is greatly magnified because of COVID. And we wanted to talk with you about that today and get some specific ideas and recommendations based on your expertise and experience in the field.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Dr Muir. I'm a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist and co-founder of Brooklyn Minds. And I do have also, I'm Italian, so I have some experience sitting around with large families around the holidays, and sometimes it not going smoothly. I think COVID's going to change a lot of this experience for us. This is our first pandemic Thanksgiving, and I think a lot of what COVID has done is changed a lot of the underlying assumptions we had about how things work. And now we're being, kind of forced at a time when tradition runs the show usually to think about, well, does this make sense anymore? In a way that's not easy or comfortable and we'd rather ignore, but that doesn't go well.
It's interesting to think about the conflict between tradition and what's currently happening in the world around us. So what three mental health strategies do you recommend for those who are stressed out about not being able to go home? So I'm one of those. I'm not going home, so we're sort of bunking tradition because we're being extra careful about COVID.
I think the first thing to do is to recognize that tradition came from somewhere, right? So we have these traditions for a reason. And the reason we have Thanksgiving is because people were starving to death. And then somebody came along and did them a solid, and they were really happy about it. And we celebrated ever since. That's the story. Similarly, Passover wasn't because people were having, an excellent time. It's because we decided that the angel of death was going to pass over us. And so kind of remembering the kind of historical underpinnings of most of our celebrations, which are generally not the most positive of times. It's usually, overcoming adversity is where we get our traditions from. This is that again. And if you wanted something to give thanks for, the willingness of you and your immediate family to sacrifice the comforts of the holiday for the safety of everyone else, that's something I'm thankful for. And I think giving ourselves permission to not only tell the story, but author it for ourselves. I'm doing this because, and marking our intentions. So this is hard, as you explain to your children and to yourself at the same time. This is hard because we're not going to see the rest of the family. And it's important because this is how we get to see the rest of the family, and so does everyone else in the future going forward, because today, this is what's required to be safe. And in the future, we may have a, COVID-19 giving where we all kind of, build little model respirators and say thank you to medical professionals or something.
It sounds like some of what you're talking about stems from being able to do a self-assessment and be aware of our own, where we are ourselves around our concerns and our feelings about some of these things.
It's a combination of checking in with yourself and then understanding that you have a permission slip to do things differently because the underlying assumptions that led to how we did things in the past are different.
I love that. Returning home, for those who do, can often bring up conflict. How can people manage mental health when they're home with their families and in the middle of some of these conflicts?
So a lot of conflicts are around things that are in our minds, right? We get in a fight with someone, we're getting in a fight with them in our head as much as we're getting in a fight with them out in the world. In fact, what's in both of our heads might be very different.
Mm.
And, this is a mental process. It can, if you're more depressed, this can be harder. If you're inattentive and have ADHD and don't have your medicine in that other state, you might be more irritable, etc. But I think the first thing to recognize is that conflict is information, not just about the fact that you disagree about something, but what's going on inside you and the other person at the same time. So there might be a reason, as my director of psychology, Becca Sinclair, would say, it might not be about the nail. Right? And so, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and okay, well, that's the problem. But in this case, it may be about how stressed we both are about COVID, how worried we both are about XYZ, being unemployed, having to face uncertainty. Those things increase our levels of stress and distress.
Are there general guidelines for people if they're sitting in a room with family members and there's a white elephant in the room?
Right. Well, the elephant in the room is one of my favorite things to talk about, which is the guideline is talk about the elephant in the room. And talk about it in a way that, I would hope kind of first off takes your own feelings into account. I'm feeling X about the fact that we're all here in a world that's gone crazy. And don't know for sure, and this is kind of the guideline, don't be so sure. If you can replace the exclamation point at the end of your sentence, and what the hell is wrong with you? With a question mark, I wonder what's going on with you. You have very different experiences, and so do your family members. And so the opposite of conflict, I would argue, is feeling understood. So guideline 1, the word but should be excised from your Thanksgiving vocabulary. That's the first thing you slice off the turkey, is the word but. The second thing is the word just. And if you can get through the night without but or just, you're going to do pretty well. Example, well, you just need to cut the goddamn turkey. As opposed to, you need to carve the turkey. I don't actually know how easy that's going to be right now, given XYZ. We don't have a knife.
Carve the turkey and bring up the white elephant.
Right. Bring up and in a way that if you're sure what the elephant is for everybody, well, maybe, but there's probably a shared experience, and if you call it out, it's a little bit like if you go to a Thanksgiving dinner and there's no turkey and everyone passes the stuffing and you're like, you talk about the fact there wasn't a turkey there. It's a traditional thing to be there. It's not there. That's surprising in that context, if that's what your family does. And so it's just like if you'd talk about if there was no turkey. This year, we'd have to talk about what it's like if we're in different places or having different experiences or stressed out or whatever it happens to be. And that can interact with other mental illnesses and underlying biological states, physical problems. Your heart rate can get elevated, angina, who knows? But feeling understood is the medicine for all of that. And you don't need to be mentally unwell to benefit from feeling understood or trying to understand somebody else.
What a wonderful gift that would be for people for the holidays to feel understood.
Well, it's a pretty simple format. Listen to what the person says, restate it, and ask them, am I getting that right? Person says yes. If that's understandable to you, say, oh, that's kind of understandable. I might feel the same way. If it's not, say, yeah, that seems really important, but I'm not getting it yet. What is it about the lack of the turkey that's really getting to you? Because I could assume, I like turkey. I miss turkey. I think it's delicious. Is that the problem? Oh, no, it's not. Gosh, it's really the stuffing for you.
The stuffing.
Right. Because if you assume which condiment, right, is the problem, you can get into fights over things that aren't the same topic, right? And it might not be about the side dishes at all. It may be about setting, experience, family members. Who knows? But once you can say who knows question mark and not Uh, well, it's great that you're here, but
Mm.
it's great that
It,
you're
it,
here, and this is also a difficult time.
these are great, great techniques and strategies and ways to communicate with our families, that really work anytime, not just for the holidays. So,
The holidays is the varsity. It's the Super Bowl of practicing this stuff. Um,
mhm.
the nice thing is you don't have to get it right. So if you find yourself saying "but," you can go, I just said "but" there. I'm going to rewind a second. Let me know if this is any better. It's great to see you, and isn't COVID a bummer?
Mm, mm.
As opposed to it's
Are,
great to see you, and but COVID's a bummer.
are there specific things that Brooklyn Minds does there to help your patients work on these types of things?
This is the work we do all day long, every day. So yes, we're preparing to help people deal with the holidays all year long. Think of it like Santa's elves, but for family conflict at holidays. And we hope every year there are just more question marks under the tree than there were exclamation points.
So, I know you spend a lot of time working with those who struggle with drugs and alcohol, and often during this time of year, it's a real challenge for individuals to maintain sobriety and to do so in a safe way. Especially difficult with COVID, and COVID pushing people to encouraging them to isolate, which often is the sort of the antithesis of what we want to do with someone in this space. So, do you have specific recommendations for those struggling with drugs and alcohol during the holidays?
The more it's a secret, the harder it's going to be.
Mm.
This might be a good time to reach out for help. And especially if you're going to, have a problem with drugs and alcohol, it's going to make family members worry. And that's why people don't like to admit it. But you know what calms people down pretty quickly? Oh, and I just saw this great psychiatrist, psychologist, social worker who's really helping me think about how I can change this.
Mm.
And then it becomes something your family doesn't have to worry about on their own. You know what? I got this with a professional. I know it's a problem. And this is me doing something about it. So then we'd be a little bit self-serving as someone in the helping people not have that problem game. But it does chill family members out to know someone is there worrying about their loved ones so they don't have to as non-experts.
Peace of mind. What could be more important than that?
Pass the understanding and the knowledge that you're trying to take care of yourself.
And how about for those who aren't talking about it, and family members suspect or are concerned that somebody is using or has relapsed? What are some of the signs people should be looking out for?
This is the kind of thing where there's like Mindstrong is a company that's gotten $100 million run by co-founded by Tom Insel from NIMH to develop systems to track with data from our phones when people are relapsing and blah blah blah. You know who knows if you're relapsing? Your mom, your brother, even your aunt. This is not going to be a surprise to them. So if you think you're hiding it really well, these are people who know you. Maybe not. And it's stressful to keep secrets. It also, the more we hide things like this, the more it's not okay for anyone else in the family to come forward and admit that they're struggling and need help or needed help or whatever it happens to be. So I think that I understand why people keep this a secret. And I also see how freeing it is for people when they don't have to anymore. And so I would encourage people to consider having those conversations around this, because right now, look, 11% of Americans thought about killing themselves last month.
Really, really hard times. Really.
But the opioid epidemic was killing as many people as COVID in 2019. The pandemic was already here, almost. Well, so if you add up suicide plus overdose, you get pretty close to the COVID numbers.
I've often talked about us having the mental health crisis is as significant as the COVID.
The numbers back it up.
Yeah.
There's a tidal wave. It was just a lot quieter.
Mm.
And masks didn't protect you.
And it's harder. We don't have a test. We don't have a test. We can go, well, the COVID test, not terribly accurate either.
There are plenty of tests that'll tell. You just have to take them, right? Why am I suffering?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a time where, maybe it might, I hope, be a little easier to talk about. How are you struggling with this? By the way, the options include not just, self-care activities and yoga. Are you drinking more? How's Wine Club going for you? How's your Netflix subscription? The ways people cope now, we have kind of a little more permission to talk about, I would hope.
Speaking of permission, I've often felt that in addition to something like telemedicine, one of the silver linings here has been that we're having more discussions and talking more about mental health. And my hope is that if this vaccine comes and we settle this COVID thing down in the next year, that I'm optimistic that we can continue this discussion about mental health and address it in a more upfront and aggressive way. And that in addition to that, companies and funding will also follow suit on that.
I don't know that we're going to have a choice. I think the scale of just direct impact of the COVID-19 virus on the brain is significant. We don't know how much, we don't know in which ways, but this is essentially an autoimmune trigger for a variety of organ systems. It's not just the lungs. So just that alone is not, it's not good, but it's also a great reason to talk about what's going on. And now we've all had this shared experience of awfulness. So I hope, nobody has to pretend on Facebook that they're having a perfect life right now. Instagram isn't only pictures of us, just like, I'm having an amazing party. And if that is the picture, it's probably a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that both there will be more permission to talk about things in a way that's more genuine. And it's going to be pretty hard to avoid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you, in our last 2 minutes here, do you have any other advice for people around the holidays and managing their mental health?
Make sure to pester your doctor for an early refill of your Xanax script because they love that. That's not true at all. Right. If you have medications, talk to your doctor about whether they are safe to mix with drugs or alcohol. And if you're taking them, let your doctor know because this is something they've heard before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most importantly, wear a mask when you're out and about and follow the guidelines your local state and health board have for travel when it comes to COVID. Because none of us are getting better from our depression if we're dead from COVID. And for all my colleagues who are working in emergency rooms and ICUs, they need as much of a rest as is humanly possible. And that means us all doing our part to protect our health from COVID long enough to get that vaccine.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning healthcare workers. 900 employees at Mayo Clinic have tested positive. And when you think about keeping in touch, keep in touch with your psychiatrist, keep in touch with Department of Health about their guidelines, keep in touch with your primary care physician so that they can also be a point of communication about not only what's happening in the future, but also how we're behaving now.
Thanksgiving is a funny day for me because for a very, very long time, it was never about family. It was always about service. And I worked probably most of the Thanksgivings, if not that Christmas, for a good 10 years or more. And so many others like me do. So,
did you do volunteer work or did you serve in the
no, those are the shifts I had.
Well, look, I was the
I
one.
signed up for them.
I was the one bringing meals to the staff.
You were, I remember.
I was always the guy who came in the middle of the night. I always got the work shift. Wednesday night, Thursday.
Why do you think I took the shift, John? The next day was great.
Right, it's really right.
Joking, not joking. The people who are on the front lines of keeping us all safe, whether we had planned to be or not, deserve as much of our thanks as we can possibly give them. And if you know any healthcare workers, say thank you. And thank you, John, for when I needed it as a younger man, providing me and everyone I worked with. I remember so clearly the Thanksgiving, or Lance and the rest of the ER staff and I, like, food's here. This is amazing. And thank you.
Happens for a reason.
It happens for a reason.
Thank you. Thank you for your work, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. That was helpful.
Have a good day.